Straight from the band. This is Straight from the band. Test. 1, 2, 2. Straight from the band. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Straight from the Ben. Our guest today is an artist and independent filmmaker with already 2 documentaries and 2 feature films to her credit. Her latest was just released a few weeks ago, and some of her other work can be seen on the internet through YouTube or Vimeo. Truly a delight to talk with, and it is with our honor to bring to you our conversation with Colleen Furlotte. Testing 1, 2.
2, 5, 7.
Test.
2, 5, 7.
Welcome
1,
to Straight from the Band.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Probably the most average podcast ever.
7.
In 3, 2, 1.
Al.
Firm. How are
Here
you,
we
buddy?
are. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah?
You?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm good. Before we get started tonight,
Yeah?
did I ever tell you my one of my dreams in life?
No.
I always wanted to be in a movie.
Which one?
I don't know. Anyone.
Anyone.
Do you know anybody that makes movies?
I don't.
Huh?
I'm kidding. I do. Funny, like we have our guest here tonight.
Oh my God, what a coincidence.
Talk about coincidence.
Maybe I'll do an audition.
We have Colleen Furlotte.
Hello.
Hi, Colleen.
Hi, that was a very cute lead-in.
Welcome.
We're all about cute.
Welcome.
Thank
Yes, we
you.
try.
Yes.
Yes.
So Colleen is an independent filmmaker, and she's
Yes.
done already like quite a few films, a few documentaries, a few films.
Yep.
And I had a chance to look at a few, and very interesting.
Thank you.
And it was, yeah. So let's start at the beginning. Like, how did you get into film?
Oh, it's gonna sound like very dramatic, but this is honestly the truth. I was out walking one night, and the idea for my first film. When I say the idea, it's like literally the film just started playing in front of me. Well, in my mind, obviously, but it was like it was playing in front of me. So the title and the who the guests were, and certain visual images that ended up in the film, certain auditory segments that ended up in the film. It just sort of, that's how they always come to me. It's like a big gigantic, I explained it to someone like this, it's like a big gigantic box that like lands on my front doorstep that I have no choice but to like open and climb inside, because when I get those ideas, they won't let me go till I make them. So it's happened 4 times in 10 years.
So
Yeah.
was art kind of part of your life when you were young, for example?
Well, my background is I was always musical. So from the time I was a little kid, because both of my parents were very musical, both of their families were. I'm Irish Acadian, so lots of music. So my earliest memories, I was always singing, and then I played in bands. I was, in school choir. I did theater. But even in theater, I was kind of always more attracted to more dramatic, kind of, I guess, like darker stuff. And then I was in bands for a number of years, and I was always into writing. So I guess that's sort of my background. And when I had the idea to make this first film, I was lacking some skills. I'm not a camera person. I knew nothing about how to make films, but I had some foundation, I guess, because I had some of the, creative vision that you would need, and some idea, I guess, of how to piece it together. And also just I'm very tenacious, and when I decide I'm going to do something, I just put one foot in front of the other, and I kind of made it up as I went, and learned. Like, it was sort of like, here, throw you into the deep end and learn how to swim.
So
that sort of thing.
your first one, was it A Question of Beauty?
Yes,
was that your
it was
first
a
one?
feature documentary. Yeah.
So that's the first box that landed
Yeah,
on
that was
your
the first
doorstep.
box that landed on tech.
Why?
Yeah.
Do you know why? Do you know why that box landed there?
I think I was thinking of I had written a book, and some of the concepts of the book were in my mind. And I think I had just, it seems that usually when I have these ideas, there are different things happening in my life that sort of converge. That was 10 years ago, so I don't remember exactly all of what was happening.
because I watched it, and I watched it with my wife the other day, and it wasn't quite what I was expecting. I was expecting more of a social kind of a social statement or anything like that, and it wasn't. It was just a really positive statement on what is beauty, and what is beauty in everybody has a different version or a perception of beauty, and it was really interesting. It wasn't what I was expecting.
Yeah,
it
well, I
was
think
refreshing.
it was very important for me to get the perspectives of some people who would come at it from a different angle. So having artists speak, because artists are very, they see things where
Yes.
not everybody will see them. And then there's a druid priest who, very philosophically, and an anthropologist. And I'm not into the typical documentary format. The 2 docs that I did were unscripted.
Mhm.
So I basically go in, let people talk, and then hope that within that I have what I need to stitch a story together. And you take a big chance when you do that. It was the same thing this past summer when I did Tent City, because you shoot what you shoot, and you're not in control. You just take what they give you. And then I have to sit down when I'm editing and go, oh my, is there a story here? Do I have a clear beginning, middle, and end? And also like a thread going through and kind of a wax and wane and yeah, like it's a bit of a trick to get a story, especially if you want it to be a compelling story. So every time I've done it, when I sat down to edit it, it was always a bit nerve-wracking because there's always a chance that you didn't get it. You could have some really interesting stuff, but it may not all go together in a way that makes sense. So luckily, both times it did.
Wow,
Yeah.
and that's another one that I got a chance to watch is
Yeah.
Tent City, and that it really brings a different perspective on the homeless and the situation, and it I don't know, we have kind of preconceived notions of the homeless but it really, just hearing them speak and hearing their story and their perspective on
Their
it,
community.
their community, I mean, that was very strong, very
Yeah.
powerful.
Very strong sense of community.
Yeah.
Yeah, it surprised me too. I have to admit, I was really, it's a bit embarrassing to admit this because I live in Riverview, very close to the bridge. So I was driving by Tent City for weeks without I didn't even see it. I didn't even know it was there.
Mhm.
I was in a bit of a bubble because I was tying up the previous film project, which was really big. So I was editing and I was living a bit like under a rock. So I was not paying attention to the news. It had already been in the news quite a bit,
Yeah.
but I didn't even realize it was there. And when this opportunity came to shoot this documentary, I went in and I had no idea what I was walking into. I thought I might know a few of the people there because I volunteer at the Humanity Project. I serve supper there, but I really had no idea and I have to admit I was a little bit nervous going in because I was like, I don't know what is this? And there seemed to be all this mystery and a bit of darkness surrounding it. And because by the time we went in, I was caught up a bit on the press and it was, some pretty negative stuff. And I just didn't know what I was walking into. And it was so different from what I was expecting when we went in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I watched. I think you watched it as well. And the the people there. I mean, there was a few there that it's.
So, but
I don't know. I'm kind of a loss for words when it comes to some of these individuals. Like you kind of have your mind blown because that's not what you expect at all.
Yeah.
yeah, some are quite philosophical.
Very
Yes.
philosophical, very
Yeah.
articulate,
Yeah.
very
Yes.
likable, very
Absolutely.
congenial, very
Yes.
kind.
Yes.
Yeah, very endearing.
So I'm curious to know how that box landed on your doorstep because you said you were in another bubble.
Yeah.
So what made you come out of that bubble to say, hey, there's a tent city, let's do something about that?
That was me finishing up. So the last big project I did is a feature-length film that we actually just premiered called Petal and Moth, and that consumed me for close to a year. And when I finished it, I was freaking out because I felt like I was going from something that took up all the space in my life to like nothing. And I panicked because I was like, I can't have nothing. I have to do something. I'll just do something small. So it just a few things lined up where there was a camera person available that I had met at the Humanity Project. And then I was tipped off on this tent city and I thought, oh, I'll just do this. So I just literally jumped from one to the other because honestly, I couldn't handle the the abyss that I felt like I was going to be dropping into creatively. Yeah, and timing wise, it was perfect because I feel like we caught a snapshot in time when we went in there to shoot that, because things did change after that.
Yes.
It kind of like seemed to fall apart in some ways. There were some different people that moved in. The city tightened up security. That changed things. So we just, we captured this beautiful snapshot in time. But I think what's amazing about that is it shows you what's possible when the right people come together with the right support. And
What was your
shows that you the humanity.
What was your reception when you went in Tent City and said, "Listen, folks, here's what I want to do"? Did you have a good reception? Because I would think they would be cautious.
There were a few people that right away got because what we did is we were planning on going to shoot on a Monday, but we went in the Sunday before just to kind of say like, hey, this is who we are. Are you guys cool? We wanted to feel it out. I would never have just descended upon them because that would not have been fair. And there were a few people right away that were like, whoa, as soon as they saw us coming in, they saw us as intruders. And we just said, no, don't worry. You know, if you're not comfortable with this, we just respected that. But there were people who came forward right away and said, no, like we're happy. So the people who were uncomfortable kept away. They knew we were coming. And the people who were okay with it are the ones that we captured. And the ones that were willing to, some of them are not speaking. They were just part of a meeting that was taking place when Charles Burrell from the Humanity Project went there. But we had to get their permission as well to be seen on camera. So it was a mixture, probably like it would be in any neighborhood. You know, not everybody's comfortable on film. Yeah, sure. And we respect that.
So when you get a project like that in your head and you want to get it out there, what's the ultimate goal? Is it for people to see it? Is it to influence? Or is it just a creative process where I have to do something with this, and if 2 people see it, I'm okay with it? Or so what goes through your head? What is the ultimate objective when you start something?
I think they've been different in some respects. Like Tent City, for sure. What I wanted to inspire some sort of social. I wanted it to have a social impact. I wanted to inspire compassion and understanding. So that one was the one that was. It really wasn't about me in any way. It's funny because I selfishly went into it because I was like, oh, I need to be doing something right now. But then in the end, it really had nothing to do with me. I felt like I want to get this out because it's important. The other ones were more like it was a creative, like Petal and Moth was a fully creative thing that I just wanted to, I felt that I had to complete, but for myself mostly, I guess.
So let's talk about Petal and Moth. That just came out. Not very long ago.
Yeah, we premiered it here on the. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the date. Recently.
Yeah.
We're in November.
Was it November 1st? November 1st, yeah. And we just screened at a film festival in Fredericton last weekend.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that. That's like a full feature film.
Yeah, that one was huge. Full feature film. So we shot that last summer of 2018, and I spent the winter editing it. And it was inspired by our area. It's a story about 2 people who meet by the river. They go to see the tidal bore, which it's funny because it sounds very touristy. As soon as you mention the tidal bore, you get this like, oh, come to New Brunswick. But it's not presented in that way at all. It's very much a metaphor for healing, and the shots that we got of it are really like mesmerizing and magical and very unexpected. Some people in Fredericton that have never seen the bore before saw it, and they were just like, oh, wow. We have to come to Moncton. Yeah. And even the people here who saw it were like, we've never seen it like this before. Like, now I feel like I want to go see it again. So that one, it plays out as a romance, but really it's a story about healing and connection, human connection to nature, connection to the arts. The 3 characters are all very artistic. So I guess it's sort of all things that are important to me. At the basis, it's a story of connection. Right.
And this is all you, right? You wrote it, you directed it, you produced it, like the whole bit, right?
Yes, and I ended up playing the lead actress because I couldn't find a lead actress. So yeah, it was a huge endeavor. The editing especially, that took the entire winter.
Wow. So now you're touring into different film festivals? Is that how
it's been in a few. It's screened in Australia. It was in a festival in Sydney, Australia, and there's something in the works potentially here for it to screen again in the next few months. It would be a sponsored screening. And then I'm going to look at hopefully get it into some sort of an online streaming platform because I'd really like, but the feedback we're getting is quite strong, and I'd really like to get it out there. It's a beautiful snapshot of our area. Most of it was shot outside. It's a very cinematic film. It's very beautiful, and I'm just really proud of all the people that came together to work on it. It was really a community effort, because I basically do these films with next to no money. Petal and Moth was the most expensive one. I took out a line of credit to rent the camera gear and pay for a camera person, but everything else was volunteer.
Wow.
And I just do everything that I'm capable of doing. It's the only way that I'm able to do these. So Tent City was done for like $50.
You really?
Yeah, and my
$50.
first one was done for I think $500 to pay for the rights to 3 photos of Marilyn Monroe. That was my big expense.
Oh,
Wow.
And then buying the editing software. Yeah.
So like for Petal and Moth, for instance, you do everything from A to Z, like getting it into film festivals and the screenings and all that. That's a lot of work.
It is. It almost, yeah. Yeah, it was very exhausting. I'm still recovering from it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that one was
I
brutal.
imagine.
That was particularly hard, that one.
So are you looking at financing for some projects or no? Or you're still at the place where, you know what, I'm in control, I do what I want, I know it can get expensive, but...
I think when I get the idea, I'm usually just so driven to do it that the thought of having to climb that mountain, I don't even feel like trying. I usually just sort of do it on my own. Yeah, I actually don't know much about financing, I have to say. And because I didn't play by the rules. So when I say that, I mean, usually what happens when you become a filmmaker is, first of all, you have some background, some training, or you make short films. And you make short films, those are much easier to get into festivals. There are many more slots. You get a little bit of recognition. And then there's some specific funding for people who make short films. And then you kind of work your way up. But I just like flung myself in and made like a feature film from the top. And that first one actually got quite a bit of recognition, which was a bit unexpected. Like we won some awards and it had multiple screenings. And so I sort of did things backwards, and in a way I've kind of disqualified myself. I think I have disqualified myself from certain grants because a lot of them are like first time feature film,
Oh, wow.
you know, which is like,
Yeah.
In the past.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because Stripped was your first.
Stripped was my second. So I've done 3 features and then Tent City, which was a short
Okay.
doc. Yeah.
And Stripped was, in that one, I didn't really get a chance. Where do you?
That one's not available. That one we
Okay.
screened here, and it screened at a film festival. It's that's an experimental drama. It was quite strange. That one was hard for people to digest. Not for me. For me, not very much is strange, but yeah. So we screened that at the Capitol in 2016.
But I
So-
saw the preview, and the preview just draws you in.
yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Oh,
I haven't seen
I was looking. I looked for you on YouTube for everywhere, but
Yeah.
you couldn't find it.
No,
But-
it would be that one was made to really be experienced in a theater, and it was I asked a lot of the audience because I actually stripped the film of close to 50% of its image. So half the film you're having an auditory experience in the dark in the theater,
Okay.
and then the other half, and it's like it's drifting in and out. So sometimes there's an image on the screen, sometimes there isn't. It was all based on poetic writing, so it's a very artistic film.
Okay.
But it was a hard film for people to digest. But interestingly for me, that was the film that made me feel like a filmmaker. Stripped?
Well, that and Petal and Moth.
Oh, so yeah, Petal and Moth. Like I said, I think we're going to have another screening. So anyone who's listening to this who's interested, on Facebook there's a page for Petal. Just put in Petal and Moth, petal like a flower petal, and any updates on screenings will be on there. Yeah, the trailer's on there. Yeah, the synopsis. Yeah,
And
everything. Stripped is pretty private. Yeah, that one's hasn't really been shared. I don't know that I ever would. It's not conducive to watching on the internet.
No, eh?
Yeah.
It's really, like you said, it's really that experience that.
Yes.
that
Yeah, well,
experience
it's
that you would get in.
experimental. It's very, I think it's a hard
What was the
sell.
inspiration for that?
It was the same thing. I actually, my original idea was an entire film with no image, which I guess would be like a podcast. And
That's what we do. We're
yeah.
filmmakers.
yeah. Essentially, which they're now doing, so it's actually not so strange. But yeah, I just had this image of a black poster that said stripped, because sometimes light is found in the dark spaces. And stripped meant when we are stripped, when we are vulnerable. So there are 6 characters in the film. Like, one is called loneliness, one is called, shame, despair, lust. There are 6 characters. And so it's these sort of storylines that are weaving in and out, one and the other, like one into the other. It was a big challenge to edit it. I think, that might have had something to do with what made me feel like I could finally own that title as filmmaker, because it was a very complex thing to put together.
So if I go back to my previous question, that one, the objective was just to put your creative juices to work and create something, because we can't see it.
Yeah, that one was like Petal and Moth. Those two almost made me crazy, in the sense that there was no way that I couldn't do them, because from the time that the idea came to me, like A Question of Beauty, I had the idea of it, but it actually was only made 2 years later, and I comfortably kept it filed away in the back of my mind. But the Stripped and Petal and Moth, I was obsessed with both of those, like from the moment I had the first vision of it till it came out on screen. That's all I thought about. Like, they wouldn't let me not make them, those films.
and it's funny you say that, because you hear about that in a lot of artists, whether it be a painter or a musician.
It just came.
It comes to you, and they
cannot do it.
Yeah, they often use that. Exactly. They often use that same analogy, that they cannot not do it.
It's a weird thing, because I'm like a very practical person, and when somebody says something that's too out there, it's hard for me to digest. But when I say, like, I honestly mean that. It was like I just could. It feels like it's not, like, I don't feel like I made this up. It literally feels like it's this like lightning bolt, that, because it's not just a part of it. Like, when I get it, it's always the titles there, the full concept, some visual images, some very like specific parts. With Petal and Moth, the whole plot, the whole story, the characters' names, and I'd be like, why the heck? Like, where is this coming from? This has never happened to me. I've never had this experience. Why is this here?
Yeah.
And it was just right there, everything in a package.
And for those that are interested, you also have a podcast that explains Petal and Moth.
Yes, because Petal and Moth was the film that almost wasn't, like, repeatedly. It was the project almost fell apart, like, multiple times before production, during production, right near the end of production. It almost fell apart again. We were replacing camera people, lead actors, supporting. There's only 3 of us in the cast, and I'm the only one who wasn't replaced. And one of them was replaced twice during production. It was just craziness.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you say replaced, you redid the scenes with
like
the replacement.
Yeah, sometimes it's because somebody backed out at the last minute. Sometimes it's because there was some kind of a conflict and they had to be let go from the project. So then you have to like reshoot everything that you've shot.
Yeah. Well, just in case you're wondering, Fern and I would not do that to
Yes, I know. You seem very nice.
When we start something, we finish.
Yes.
But I had the opportunity, because when we kind of communicated before, you sent the link to your podcast, and I listened to a little bit, and it really kind of gives you those kind of that perception, right, of when things can go wrong, they will, right? And so it was really interesting, because now I'm looking forward to see the film, because you get all that backstory, and then now oh my God, like with everything that happened, I want to see the film.
It's really fun to see, to have like the experience of the film with the podcast. Actually, last week in Fredericton, there's a woman in St. John who had never heard of the film, but caught wind of the podcast and was so intrigued by it. She drove from St. John to Fredericton to catch the screening, because she's like, I really want to see this film.
Wow, that's good.
And I must say, you are very eloquent in your speaking on the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
It's very, like, you have that soothing voice, but you're very eloquent in your words, and your guests are very engaging as well.
The people involved in the project, even the ones who just had like small parts in it, are all, I mean, most of them are very established artists. They're very educated, intelligent, big personalities. So they're each one on their own could like have their own podcast. So I guess I was a little bit spoiled there, because they're kind of some special people that I had involved.
But your other lead actor has no experience in acting.
No.
And I was kind of blown away
and
with
neither
that.
did Melissa LeGresley, who at the last minute was the third like she was the final replacement after.
Okay.
Yeah, that character was replaced 3 times, so she had never acted before either, and she's spectacular.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because again, I just saw the preview, but even in the preview, it seems so professional. Like they seem, and I don't know if they're just are they acting? Are they actually acting, or are they being themselves? That's I don't know.
Well, I think like all 3 of us. So I have a background in theater, but I've never done this type of acting in a film before either. So it was our first time reading lines of like fictitious characters in a film. And so I think we all brought little parts of ourselves into it, I suppose, because it's you on screen.
Yeah.
So I guess but you know, they're characters, and they're saying lines that have been written for them. Some of the scenes are ad-libbed, but those were mostly with Jordan and I think, and not too dialogue heavy. But yeah, we had really good chemistry, and they're both quite laid back people. And I think it just everything kind of fell into place.
So
Oh, wow.
you haven't been professionally trained, as you said. What was the biggest learning curve in all aspects of filmmaking? What was the biggest thing that you said, I know I want to do this, but I'm not sure where to start on that part?
Well, I still feel like I'm not. I don't know much about cameras, which is kind of sad, because as a filmmaker, I should know. I really don't know much about the camera side of it, so I always hire someone to do that. But in terms of the other stuff,
Like the editing.
yeah, strangely,
What do you use for editing?
Final Cut Pro.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just a computer program?
Yeah, I sit like on my couch with my dog next to me, and I use a laptop. It's like it's so not glamorous,
Oh, wow.
like in sweatpants, you know.
That's it. That's editing.
Yeah, it's not glamorous, but I have to admit it wasn't a huge challenge for me. I had done some music videos before, and I don't know, I think there's something about a background in music that, at least for me, I have a sense of rhythm, and I kind of just go with that. And even with just dialogue, there can still be rhythm. And I don't think my films are typical. You know, I just kind of follow my own rules. If I had to follow a template, I think it might all be quite overwhelming to me. I probably wouldn't know what I was doing because I don't have a background. But I just kind of look at it and go, okay, this is what I want to do. Like, where do I start? Okay, here's this step. And if this doesn't work, I try something else. So, but yeah, I think I'm lacking certainly in the, you know, camera's like a key part of filmmaking, and I really know like next to nothing about it.
And you said you took most of the winter to edit.
I took the entire winter to edit. Yep. It was
So
a big job.
Editing, is it a lot of I don't know, second guessing, or I'm not sure if I should cut this or keep this?
No,
or
well, first you're going through hours and hours and hours of footage plus I was piecing the story together, and we actually went off the script quite a bit because we ran into so many problems with scenes getting rained out, because most of the film was supposed to be shot outside, and we had some weather issues. So things, you know, we would lose a day of shooting, and then we'd be trying to figure out, well, how are we going to make this scene happen if, you know, so we ended up, for example, shooting one of them inside this vintage Volkswagen van that somebody loaned us, a 65 VW. So we shot the scene inside, and it was a rainy day, and we just opened the windows and made it look like, oh, it's a rainy day, so they're hanging out in the van. We had to do things like that, but it actually did kind of throw the script off a little bit. So when I was editing it, we had some scenes that were originally in the script that weren't there anymore, and we had a lot of ad-libbed scenes that were not in the script. So I had to figure out how to. Plus, you're trying to condense, you know, what probably could have been a 4-hour film into an hour. It ended up being an hour and 42 minutes. So you're like trying to get this all in there and still maintain the rhythm, the flow, the story. You know, it's a bit tricky. It's definitely a bit tricky. So it's a combination of everything, you know, finding what you want, editing it, each scene in the right way, getting the timing right. The timing is so important. And this film, it's a very quiet film, so you know, you don't want to like go too far with the subtlety, because you can start to lose the audience. So you're like, it's all this thing of like pushing a little bit and pulling them back and pushing a bit and pulling them back. Yeah. So it's, and then you're fine tuning. In the end, you could spend like a month just going through and shaving a little off, getting it closer and closer and closer. And then we had to color grade, which I don't do, which actually was done by the audio guy, which blew my mind. John Marr, he's not a colorist, and he did all of the color grading for the film. And it was incredible what he did. Just like made it up as he went. And he did an amazing job.
So is it a thing, the editing of the movie, is it something like, okay, we got to call it a day. We got to close this project because we could edit forever?
Yeah, actually, that's a good way to put it. We had a deadline for a film festival, so finally it was like, okay, we're just going to stop. But that said, it's played twice, and I'm going back to tweak one thing before it goes. Because both times I saw it, I was like, oh, that's bugging me. So one little timing thing. Yeah, but I think it's maybe like that for an artist, too. Like, it's like, when do you pull that paintbrush off?
Yes.
Sometimes I think and sometimes you're like, I just need to stop because I think I'm going to start to, like, ruin what I've done.
Yeah. And you often hear that with authors as well, right? They say like, they just keep
rewrite.
And at some point you got to say, okay, it's done.
That's why I stopped writing.
It's not something that you have like these boundaries for. It's because it's just wide open. It's like no one's deciding except you, right? So yeah, it's you just have to trust your intuition, I guess.
So you were you needed something when that was done. That was Tent City. Now that Tent City was done, what's next?
Well, when Tent City finished, then I had to I took a little break because I kind of really needed a break after Peddlin' Moth and probably shouldn't have jumped into something right away, but I did. And then I think the exhaustion from Peddlin' Moth caught up with me. So I took a very short break, but it's hard for me to take a break because I'm somebody who's happier when I'm busy. And then I just started, it was film festival submissions, which is actually extremely time consuming.
Yes.
It sounds weird, but it is because there are like a million film festivals. So you're combing through them and reading the specifications and thinking like, am I a match? Do I have a chance to get in here? What are the dates? Is there something conflicting? Because some of them, if you've screened it previously, you're ineligible. So there's like math involved. Who knew? And, and then I was planning the premiere and it's just even the social media thing. Like it's very time consuming. We had this beautiful photo shoot done with Natalie Marcia. And so then, figuring out how we were going to roll out those photos. And yeah, it's like the big marketing machine too.
So is that what you're doing now? Is this what you're doing full time?
It's what I do when I have an idea to do it, and then who knows, it could be 2 years, 3 years before I do something else. Right. Or if an idea happens tomorrow morning, I'm going to be like, okay, here we go again.
Okay.
It happens when it happens.
So right now you don't have...
I don't have another project right now yet.
Well, maybe after tonight you will.
Yeah, because Al wants to act, so we're going to talk.
We know that.
I can sing.
Yeah, and he looks really good in that hat. He's got a really cool look, so you never know. He might inspire a whole story.
That's why I chose that hat tonight.
So film festivals, is that how, if a filmmaker like yourself, is that how you get recognized, I guess, or get other projects? Or
if I had followed the rules, like I said, and made short films, that's sort of part of the, you make a short film, you show it in festivals, you network, your name starts to get known, you work your way up to hopefully getting some funding. And there's sort of this little ladder that you climb. Again, for me, I kind of leapfrogged over that. So film festivals, it's a feather in your cap. It's recognition from your peers. It can help you if you're applying for grants. Like let's say an NB Arts grant or a Canada Council grant. It doesn't matter how many projects you do. If you don't have recognition from your peers, they don't recognize it. So I could make a film and think this is the biggest thing I'll ever do in my career as a filmmaker. But if I don't get into a film festival and don't get recognition, they don't even acknowledge that as a piece of your work. Like it doesn't. Yeah, it's not that they don't acknowledge that it happened, but it doesn't put you in the position where you need to be, where they decide if you are someone entering the industry or like an established artist. You have to have so many works, and it's also a way, I guess, to have your film seen as well. So it's a combination of industry recognition, networking opportunity if you're able to get to the festival, and then having your film seen.
Wow, because I love movies. And I can find, I've rarely seen a movie that I didn't like, in the sense that I didn't draw something out of it, even if it's a bad movie. Sometimes I'll find something
Rambo?
like Rambo, Last Rambo. But I'll find something
That's
out
a
of
good
it.
attitude, though.
That I'll find something out of it that that I enjoyed. So I've always been intrigued about movies. But let's say if we have young listeners, like if they're interested in movies, like what's the path? I mean, you took maybe an unusual path. Like you I think you made your own path in that sense. But what would be how does one get into filmmaking?
Well, I think nowadays there are so many opportunities because first of all, we have the ability now. Anyone who if you've got a phone, if you have a phone,
It's true, yeah.
there are
Yeah.
film festivals just based on like an iPhone.
Yeah.
Films done
Really?
on iPhones. And one of the films that got huge recognition at Cannes a number of years ago was a film called Tangerine. And it was completely shot, a feature film completely done on I believe, an iPhone. And so, you just need a basic editing software that a lot of people have access to. Because things are more in our hands now, there's more awareness of it. A lot of schools, like around here, I know that in Shediac, I believe, I know there's the film festival in Shediac. They show films from students, so I'm not sure what the arrangement is specifically that they have, but I think there's more of that even in like a high school and possibly even in junior high school. For somebody who's really serious, obviously you can go to film school. But you don't have to. Like if you
Right.
don't want to, if you want to, great. You have lots of opportunities. If you don't want to, just get out there and start shooting something, and you will just learn as you go, and you will get better and better. And my feeling is like there's no failure when you try. So you may do something and it may not work out, but to me that's not a failure. Because you've made the effort. The failure is like being too scared not to do something. So just do it. Like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of it not being good. If it's not good, do it better next time. And you don't learn like without making mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's how we learn. So that, I guess my advice would be like, just figure out, what path you want to take, and then just start on that path and have fun. Have fun with it,
So right now, so you're still applying for different film festivals. In Canada, I guess the big one would be TIFF, right?
TIFF, yes.
So that would be the kind of like
Yeah.
a big goal for
Which we didn't get
pinnacle.
into.
Okay, so you've applied for that
Yeah,
one.
I mean, I didn't think we would get in. It's
Okay.
a lot. When you have a film with completely unknown actors, it's low budget. It's what's called a cold submission, where they don't know anything about you, and you're just sending it in, going, "Hey, please look at my film." I was told that like some films don't even get 5 seconds of being looked at. So. Again, that's where the networking thing, if you're really serious about getting into film, I guess that's another piece of advice I should add is network. You can join the film co-op, the New Brunswick Film Co-op if you're in New Brunswick. If you're in another province, they probably each have a film co-op. Just get out and meet people, because that way you can collaborate on projects. You never know who you're going to meet, who can open a door for you. So it's really just to get involved and not to be afraid. And even if you have like a weird idea, like don't be afraid of that. We need those. Some of the best art happens when someone pushes so far off the edge that they actually fall off and find out that there's this whole other level,
Wow,
Yeah.
yeah.
So don't be afraid. Just like stay true to your vision. I think that's really important as any type of artist, is do what feels right to you and don't let people push you away from that.
That's a shame though, that for example, like you mentioned, they might even look at your film, that they might be missing out on some excellent films just because there's not a known actor or the director's not known or whichever like that. That's kind of
But
a
some
shame,
of the best music, some of the best art, some of the best creations that have existed throughout time have probably never been seen. There are so
true.
many people that are creating like behind the bushes and in the shadows, and not because they're hiding. It's just the market is so saturated. It's so hard to like pop your head up and go, "Hey, look at me." But just in Moncton here, I mean, the amount of talent in the arts is phenomenal. Musicians, writers, painters. It's crazy. Yeah.
So Colleen, a big mega production box comes to see you and says, "We want you to do a movie for us." Are you in?
I would depend on how much creative control I would have to, because I'm used to doing everything on my own. I think it would be very hard for me to have other people meddling in my.
Yeah.
And there's also a thing where, the too many cooks spoil the broth. The more people you have picking and poking, and it can start to like dilute what you have so that there's nothing left. So it would really depend on how many people were telling me what I had, and, what I had to do and what I couldn't do.
Because
So-
for you, it's about the art.
Yeah,
For you, it's
ultimately for
about-
me, it's about the art.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would say there's probably two types of independent filmmakers. The one, because I think it's the place to start. No one comes out of school or goes to a big box production company and says, you know what, I got an idea. So I guess you start by independent filmmaker and you make your way up. Or if you're really, I don't want to say that the people who make it to the big box production are not true to their art, but if you want complete control of what you do and, be as creative as you want, you stay in the independent sphere,
Yeah,
right?
and I mean, there are people like Sofia Coppola, for example. I think I'm not sure if she's considered independent. I know that her films, by my standards, she has a ton of money, but by Hollywood standards, she makes films on much smaller budgets so that she can have greater creative control. So there are some films being made where there is some money going in, but people, the director, the writer still has a fair bit of control. I think the higher up you go with where there's money involved, the harder it gets on the whoever is the artist of the project. Because you're probably losing more and more control there.
Yeah.
And it's not a question of control for the sake of control. It's just as an artist, you have your vision, and it would be really hard for a painter to stand there and have somebody be shouting up, no, don't put red there.
Yeah.
We want blue.
Yes. Yeah. So any inspiration when you were younger in films or
No, none.
Nothing.
Zero. I loved film, like you said, Fern. I remember being younger, and like one of my favorite things was to go to the corner convenience store and rent. I miss the days of like
Yeah.
going
Blockbuster.
and rent your
at the convenience store,
your VHS tape
Yeah.
and get your snacks and
Oh, you still-
but I don't know. It's funny because the type of films that I liked then and the type of the films that I didn't like are completely reversed now. What I didn't like is now what I love, and what I liked is now what I don't like. I've become a bit of a film snob, I think. Yeah.
So in the last 5 years, can you give us some movies, some hidden gems that no one would have seen, or that you would say, hey, please go check that out?
Yeah, my favorite films, The Broken Circle Breakdown, which I believe is Danish. They have all of these at Spin It. There's one called Every Day, which the acting is so amazing that I thought it was a documentary when I first started watching it. It's about a family. I think they're in England. The father's in prison, a young family, and you see how the mother's trying to cope with the kids, and the kids grow up during the film, and the performance by the kids is like, it's mind-blowing. So that's called Every Day. A film called Rams, that's another really amazing one. I also love Blue is the Warmest Color, which was a bit controversial because it has like a 6-minute very graphic lesbian sex scene, which I thought was like, I don't think the film needed that, actually. I think, because I'm more of a fan of like the suggestion of something, not that I think there's anything wrong, because that's real life too, but I just felt it pushed it more than it needed to. To me, the beauty of the film is outside of that aspect of it, but that's a beautiful film. Amazing acting.
Have you seen The Farewell Party?
I've never heard of it,
Okay.
but I'm going to Google it when I get home.
Yeah, it's foreign language. My son has recommended it to me a few times, and I can't find it, so I'll have to go to Spin It.
Spin It is, we are
Yeah.
very lucky to have
Yes,
that place.
yes.
That is a gold.
Extremely lucky
That
to
is a
still-
gold mine.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they have so many movies.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I
don't
love
even-
that place.
I don't even think my DVD still works. How do you?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you have a
Mine
Xbox.
does.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I have a
I'm
little
good.
cheap plug, like one that plugs in.
Yeah.
Oh, and a documentary called The Artist is Present, featuring Marina Abramovich, which I believe you can see on YouTube. It used to be on Netflix. That's an amazing one. And also on Netflix, if it's still up, there's something called Love Story, and another one called Blue Jay, which I highly recommend. These are
I
very
saw
like,
Blue Jay.
yeah, isn't that amazing?
I love Blue Jay.
And Love Song is really interesting because the actress that really captivated me, I found out, strangely enough, she's Elvis Presley's granddaughter. she is one of the best actresses I've ever seen.
Right up your alley.
Yeah.
Al.
Well,
It's called, I
a
think it's
baby
called
left, maybe?
Love Story.
Really?
Love Story.
I gotta
boy.
look that up.
Yeah, or Love Song.
I'm gonna
It's
take
Love
some
Song
notes
or
later.
Love Story.
Yes.
Sorry, I might be messing that up. Just Google that and Elvis Presley's granddaughter. I can't remember her name.
Yeah. So the best platform to find you is YouTube.
No, not YouTube. Actually, no. I have a Vimeo channel, but none of A Question of Beauty is there. No, I don't put anything up on YouTube. Vimeo. And
Well, Tent City's on YouTube.
yes, because I actually gave Tent City to the Humanity Project, and they put it up
Gotcha.
on their site. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So my own stuff I don't put up on there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have a Vimeo channel where anyone can see A Question of Beauty. The full film is still up there. It's been there. It's like 10 years actually. We filmed it 10 years ago, like as of
Oh, is that right?
It was September 2009 that we shot it. Yeah, anyone interested in catching Petal and Moth, which will be available sometime in 2020 online, I'm hoping, and in the Moncton area within the next few months, just follow us on Facebook, Petal and Moth, and the podcast is if you do petalandmoth.com, that website is actually the podcast.
Okay. So, how do you go to the next step? Like, would you ever release it in, like, let's say a DVD, like on?
It's so expensive.
Is
It's
that
not
right?
worth it. It's so expensive
Okay.
to get the printing done. And again, like you said, people aren't really using DVD.
That's true.
Like my Mac
now-
doesn't have I have to plug in this
Yeah.
old clunky plastic
That's
DVD
true.
thing to
Yeah.
play
So
something.
So now streaming
It's
is
streaming is the way to go. Yeah. It's just it's so expensive by the time you pay for the graphics and the printing and
Yeah.
the packaging and then it's like, how do you sell it? You know, you might sell like
Yeah,
50
yeah.
copies to family and friends. It's
So
not
now
worth
you've
it.
done both. You've done documentaries and you've done full feature. Like,
Mm-hmm.
do you have a preference?
I like them both for different reasons. I like them both, and I'm not gonna call myself like, it's funny because I think because I first made a documentary, the expectation is, okay, you're going to be a documentary filmmaker, because I think it's just a human nature thing where for us it's easier for us to understand things when we can put them neatly into a
In the
box.
box, yes.
But I'm just going to make, who knows what I'm going to make next. Like, it'll be whatever comes to me. I've never made a short film. Who knows? It could be a short film. It could be another crazy experimental film. It could be a horror film. Who knows? It'll be whatever it is. Whatever box lands next.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe Al will be inside.
Oh, there you
Look
go.
at that.
Oh, baby, let me be. So listen, you're Mommy, I made it into movies. You said Petal and Moth is at an Australian film festival right now?
It played.
It played.
We got into 3 film festivals, and one of them was in Sydney, Australia. So it was screened in Sydney,
So
Australia.
you don't go
Well,
there.
by the time I found out that we got in, it was so last minute notice. I
Yeah.
didn't have time to. But if I had some notice to go to one that was, like reasonable for me to get there, I'd love to have a chance. I submitted to one in Iceland. I don't know what the odds are of getting in, but I would
Nice.
definitely try to go to that one if I
Iceland,
could.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'd go.
And I think it's like the first year of the festival, so it's a brand new festival, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the reception in Australia? Do you know? How do
No,
you,
because we weren't there. We just knew that we were in.
Good.
So you don't get really any feedback per se.
No, I mean they have there's just so much going on there that you don't really know. The film is just screened, and yeah, you're notified if you win. And not all film festivals have prizes. I don't even remember if that one had prizes. Some of them it's just your award is that we are
got in.
You're going to get screened. And some of them you get screened and then you're also in competition. But we haven't received any awards. Silver Wave, we weren't in competition for anything. We were an official selection.
Okay. Because I love, like I mentioned, I love movies, but I also enjoy watching documentaries. And,
Me too.
And do you, like, looking at society, like going out, because you're a filmmaker.
Going deep.
Oh, boy.
He's going
Looking at
deep.
society and so, do you sometimes look and say, oh, that would make such a good
my
documentary?
Gosh, all the time. All
Okay.
the time, especially because there's so many things that I'm like very interested in,
Yeah.
and passionate about, or have strong opinions
Okay.
about, like social media use and
Donald Trump.
that one. I think for like
Al is going to make one on
for the sake of my mental health, I've distanced myself from that.
Yes,
It's too hard for me to wrap my brain
Yes.
around. It's, oof.
I have an unhealthy obsession with Donald Trump. I think many people do, actually.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that something that might be in your future? Like you said, you're just
Donald?
no, not Donald.
Not
Never.
Only Donald aside.
No.
But other.
I'm not in that one, anyways.
Would you like to play Donald Trump?
No.
We'll shave your beard,
It's
dye your hair.
very great people. Great people.
But no, I like other like. But I guess it's like you mentioned. It would have to really come to you. And
Yeah, lightning bolt.
There are things that I'm interested enough in doing. It's just I don't have the motivation right now to take it on. So if I am not feeling the motivation to go out and chase it, then usually I have to wait for something to like grab me by the scruff of the neck and go, okay, you don't have a choice. So now you're going to do this.
Right. Because I guess sometimes if you have to work too hard to get it, I guess sometimes it's not
I think
really meant to be. Maybe.
I don't know. For me, this is just my creative process, and it's a very frustrating one. When I want to find something, like if I want to have a little conversation with my muse, so to speak, it runs. And the more I chase it, the faster it goes. And it's when I like totally give up my hands in frustration and just like surrender, and then I get the little tap on the shoulder. So that just seems to be how it works for me. I don't know why it's like that. Some people are very disciplined and they're able to come up with what they need to, but that doesn't seem to work for me. Yeah.
You mentioned writing earlier.
Yes.
You still write?
Yes.
Anything that you want to scoop or tell us about?
You mean like an idea?
Yeah. Or are you going to publish? Are you publishing?
Not right now. Well, because in Petal and Moth, I'm a songwriter, so I've recently just written a song for a friend. We sort of did a little artistic exchange. So I wrote a song to her poetry. I have a song in Petal and Moth, and I do some poetry. And I feel like I would like to write a book. I feel like I would like to write a book. Maybe I'm not sure on what yet. I love stories, which is probably why I like documentary. I love people. I'm really intrigued by human behavior. So it's just I haven't figured out what specifically that is yet. Because again, that's a big, it's a big undertaking. And I feel like I want to write a book where I have to talk to people and get their stories and their input. So it would be some kind of like a collaborative effort.
So you're not looking at a fictional book. You're talking more of
I don't feel like I have that in me, but it's funny. I never imagined that I would ever make a fictional film. I never thought I wanted to. I didn't think I was capable. And then Petal and Moth it's fictional, and that just happened. So I thought, oh, I guess I can do this. So I don't know.
Would you write a play?
Oh, actually, I'm helping somebody do that right now.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. I have to say the most pleasurable part of Petal and Moth was writing the script.
Yeah. Eh?
That was the most enjoyable
Really?
part. Yeah. That was the part that I was like, oh, I could just do this forever.
And when did you write that? Because you shot in 2018. Like,
Yeah.
did you write for 3 years before that?
No,
or-
when I was getting ready, when I was planning the premiere for Stripped in 2016, I had the idea for Petal and Moth. It was towards the end of the summer of 2016. And then it took me forever to find the actors and to get things organized. And so we ended up only shooting in 2018. But it haunted me that whole time. I was ready to like do it right away.
So when you write, do you write on paper or do you type?
I type now. I used to write on paper. I was very late. It's hilarious to me that I actually edit films because I didn't even know how to do email like not that long ago. So I don't have a cell phone. I still have an old phone and an old answering machine with a cassette tape. I'm very anti-technology.
Oh, wow.
I know. So
I think you could make a documentary
I
on
would
that.
love to actually handwrite, but now my handwriting, like people can't read it. It's so
gotcha.
bad now that when I give people cards for their birthday, I have to like decipher it. So it's on the computer. I type with 2 fingers and edit with 2 fingers.
Wow.
It's amazing what you can do if you put your mind to it.
Yeah. So a true artist that's all over the place in terms of creative vehicles, right? You write songs.
Do you still sing? Do you still perform?
do. I don't perform publicly, but I do studio work, and often like for films or or when I feel inspired to do something.
It's kind of nice. So when the idea comes to you, do you know that what vehicle you will use?
Yeah, when the idea comes, it comes with the vehicle attached.
Yeah.
The idea comes with the vehicle.
love
Yeah.
it.
It's never like, oh, is this going to be a book? It's like, no, here's this film, ka-chunk. Here's
Boom.
this song.
Ka-chunk.
Yeah. Here's this book. I'm hoping a book will land on my lap. I feel like it would be fun to write a
Well,
book.
I'm looking for a movie, so
Oh. Yeah, we're gonna talk.
You can maybe ghostwrite the life of Al.
I will just say to anyone out there listening who has any creative ideas, just throw yourself into it. Just throw yourself into
Yeah.
it with reckless abandon and don't be afraid. It's just amazing. We need art and we need all forms of art.
yeah.
Cool.
Good.
Very good.
I
That
love
was
it.
very informative.
I can't wait to see Petal and Moth.
Yeah. So you say that it is going to be back in Moncton.
There's, I believe, going to be a sponsored screening in the next few months. So again, it will be all over Facebook if you just look
Yes.
up the Petal and Moth page.
Because the last
PETAL
time you
Petal.
were at, it was screened at the University of Moncton,
Yes,
was it?
yeah.
At Far East?
Yeah, Jacqueline Bouchard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So do we know where it would be?
I can't say yet.
Oh, we can't say.
Yeah.
It's a secret.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
And if that falls through, I might do my own screening again in the spring, possibly as a fundraiser, because I feel like I would like more people to see it,
Yeah.
especially because
Yeah.
it's a film that was inspired by our area, fully produced here. And it's a beautiful film. Like I have to say, it's really, the area is just, there were people who said like they wanted to crawl into the screen and just live in that world. So I really want more people in the area
That's
to see it,
nice.
because
Yeah.
I think it's like a love story to our area, the beauty of our area.
yeah.
Because it's a shame. I just missed it because I always kind of go online and just check around. Because, I mean, a big basis of the podcast here is to highlight local talent and local, because you mentioned it earlier, we have so many talented and artistic and intelligent people that we want to just broadcast it to the world, right? To our 86 listeners, whatever we,
Yes.
We're going to see if we can
Yeah,
help
yeah.
you stretch
Yeah.
that a little bit.
Well,
no,
when it is when it comes back to Moncton, we could put it on our platform and
For
just,
sure.
You know.
yeah, because I just missed it because I was looking through and then I fell upon your name, Colleen Furlotte, like independent filmmaker. And I'm like, oh, wow. Because I recognized the name because we did work together.
I know when I got the message from Fern, I'm like, I know this guy from
Yeah,
So
somewhere.
way
connected,
back.
that Fern.
Way
Years
back.
ago,
So
we
connected.
Yeah.
worked together one summer.
So I started looking and then I fell upon Tent City, and that's the first thing that I watched. I'm like, oh, wow, this is really good. And then I looked upon other stuff that you did, and then when I looked at your latest one, Petal and Moth, I saw, there's a screening, and I just missed it by maybe 2 days. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy to know that it'll be.
Yeah, I'm really
back
hoping that this all works out. And like I said, if it falls through for some reason, I'll probably do another one. But anyone who's interested, follow us online, because I'm really hoping to have it on some sort of a streaming platform, and all that information will be on the page. Yeah, it's like, it's like your business page, like
Yeah,
you guys have
absolutely.
for the podcast,
Yeah.
right? It's where
Yeah.
we keep everyone up to date.
Yeah.
Good.
And hats off for doing the podcast, by the way, because I think that's, you guys had an idea, you took a chance. I think that's amazing. I love seeing people in our area, carrying the torch.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
It's wonderful.
We have fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all Fern's idea.
Well,
I just show up and I have fun.
we do have fun.
Yes.
We're
we
sitting
have
at a very cool table.
It is very
I
cool.
have to
We
say.
love it.
Yeah.
We love it. And thanks for coming.
Oh, thanks for having
This
me.
was really good.
Before we end,
Yes.
at the end of each podcast, we just kind of do a little something fun. We have 3 questions.
Well, I only have 2 now. But
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
he
you
has
only-
3.
We have 3. So you want to
Yikes.
go first, Al?
I'll go first.
So you pick a question from 1 to 2 for Al.
Yeah.
So
I have to pick a number?
pick a
Yes.
number.
Pick a number.
Question 1 or question 2?
2.
Question 2. If you could live or had to live, if I forced you to leave Canada for a year and say you have to pick a country, where do you go?
I think I would go to Ireland and live in the community where my paternal grandmother is from. Yeah, it's because it's my dream to go there. I haven't gotten there yet. Wexford,
Okay.
Ireland.
All
Oh,
right.
that was easy
All
for
right.
Yeah.
her.
Yes.
She knew right away.
She knew. Bing, bang.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So 1 to 3 for me.
3.
If you were asked to join an exploration crew to explore the universe but could not come back, would you do it?
No.
So you're happy here.
It's
You're not
it's challenging sometimes, but I think the planet Earth is beautiful, and I'm happy to look up with eyes of wonder and stay here.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Colleen, it's been a pleasure.
Oh,
has.
thank you so
Thanks for
much,
coming.
guys.
Thank you.
And we look forward to your next adventures.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll definitely keep an eye out for
Yes.
what's coming next.
Excellent.
Thanks,
Perfect.
guys.
Thank
All right.
you, Al.
Fern, till next time.
All right.
Ciao.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you did, you could do us a big favor and share with your friends or rate us wherever you listen to this podcast. Our goal is truly to highlight the Maritimes, and we can only do this with your help. If you didn't like our conversation, well, what's the matter with you? Nah, just kidding. Our motto is one day better. That means we always want to be one day better than we were yesterday. So leave us a comment on Facebook and tell us how we can be better. We'd appreciate it, and we might even read your comment on our next podcast. Thanks for listening, and remember, look at everyone like they have something to teach you. See you next time.